I love my sick mother lying on bed. I am terrified of losing her.
I wanted a miracle. Please find help.
It was 11:43 on a freezing Harlem night when Leon Mercer took the money. Not borrowed it, not touched it and thought better of it, not held it in trembling hands and handed it back. He took it. $5,000, wrapped in brown paper and tied with butcher's string, slid across the back table of a closed butcher shop on 132nd Street. In 1962, that kind of money could buy medicine, rent, silence, and one more month of hope for a dying woman. It could also buy a man's soul, if the man had already spent too many nights listening to his mother cough through thin apartment walls. Leon told himself he was not betraying anyone. He told himself he was only giving up a time, a location, a little information, one quiet detail, one meeting place, one route. Nothing more. No blood, no gun, no body on the pavement. Just a whisper sold to the wrong ears. But Harlem had its own mathematics. And in Harlem, when you sold a whisper that belonged to Bumpy Johnson, the price was never what they paid you up front. By sunrise, Leon Mercer would understand that. By sunrise, every door he had ever walked through would close. By sunrise, every man who once called him brother would look through him like smoke. And by sunrise, he would be gone. Not because anyone dragged him into an alley, not because anyone put a bullet in the back of his skull, but because Bumpy Johnson understood something most dangerous men never learned. Violence was loud. Fear was temporary. But isolation was permanent. Leon Mercer was 28 years old, narrow-shouldered, quick with numbers, clean with his clothes, and trusted just enough to stand near money without ever being allowed to touch the crown itself. He was one of those men who existed in the machinery around power. Not the boss, not the trigger, not the public face. He was one of the dependable hands in between. The kind of man people forgot to notice because he was always exactly where he was supposed to be. For 3 years, that had kept him alive. For one night, desperation made him stupid. And Harlem never forgave stupidity when it came dressed as betrayal. The man who paid him was named Vincent Marchetti, though most people on the West Side called him Vinnie March, because it made him sound smaller than he really was. He wasn't a boss. Men like him never were. He was the kind of polished, cold-eyed errand man powerful people used when they wanted something dirty handled clean. Vinnie wore camel coats, spoke softly, and smiled with only half his mouth. He had the habit of folding his gloves before he sat down, as if even leather deserved more respect than most human beings. Leon hated him on sight. That made taking the envelope worse. "You give me the location," Vinnie said, "and nothing happens to you." Leon stared at the butcher block between them. Old knife cuts striped the wood like scars. "You said it was just business." "It is just business." "Then why are you talking like a priest at a funeral?" Vinnie smiled. "Because men only ask for guarantees when they already know they're doing something wrong." Leon's jaw tightened. "I'm not giving you Bumpy. I'm giving you a route. Call it what you want." Leon said nothing. In his coat pocket was a folded hospital estimate from Harlem Hospital Center. His mother, Odessa Mercer, needed treatment he couldn't pay for. The doctor hadn't said dying, but he hadn't needed to. Bills had a language of their own. So did the way nurses looked at poor families when they tried to smile too hard. $5,000. More money than Leon had ever seen on one table. Enough to make a weak man think he was still decent. Vinny slid the envelope another inch. Midnight pickup. Where? Leon swallowed. He could still walk away. He could still stand up, leave the shop, and go back to the cold with his pride and his poverty intact. He could still face Bumpy tomorrow with clean eyes. Instead, he heard his mother coughing. He heard the pharmacist saying, "Come back when you have the rest." He heard himself say, "Lenox, behind the old music hall, 115. Vinny didn't blink. "And who'll be there?" "A driver, 2 carriers. That's all I know." That was a lie. He knew more. Vinny already knew it was a lie. But he took the answer anyway, pushed the money forward, and stood. "Do yourself a favor, Leon," he said, pulling on his gloves. "Leave town before the sun gets ideas." Then he walked out the back door into the cold. Leon sat there alone. The envelope looked heavier than paper should. He reached for it slowly, like it might burn him. And maybe it already had. When he finally stood and tucked it beneath his coat, he did not know there had been a witness. Not a cop. Not one of Bumpy's soldiers. Just a cleaning woman named Evelyn Price, 56 years old, arthritic hands, tired feet, and a memory that Harlem trusted because it had never once caught her lying. She had come through the alley behind the butcher shop to throw out kitchen scraps from the diner next door. She saw Vinny leave. She saw Leon a minute later with fear in his face and money under his coat. She didn't say a word to him. She didn't need to. By 12:08, she had told her nephew. By 12:19, her nephew told a piano player at Small's Paradise. By 12:34, the piano player told a man named Isaiah Cole. And Isaiah Cole belonged to Bumpy. What mattered in Harlem was never speed. It was direction. And by the time the news reached Bumpy Johnson, it arrived without panic, without confusion, and without waste. A betrayal had occurred. The name was Leon Mercer. The price was $5,000. The buyer was Italian. The mistake was fatal. Just not in the way Leon expected. Before we go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Bumpy Johnson received the news at the Wells restaurant, sitting in a back booth under a yellow lamp that made the room feel warmer than it was. He had a cup of coffee in front of him, black and untouched, and a folded newspaper by his hand. 2 men sat nearby pretending not to watch him. Everyone in the room understood that when bad news arrived, you never interrupted the first 10 seconds of Bumpy's silence. Isaiah delivered the message in under a minute. He gave facts, not feelings. Names, not guesses. When he finished, Bumpy looked down at the table and tapped one finger against the ceramic cup. Once. Twice. Then he asked, "Why?" Isaiah hesitated. "His mother's sick." Bumpy's eyes lifted. That was the worst possible answer. Because Bumpy Johnson had a weakness he rarely let the world see, and that weakness was memory. He remembered who had been hungry. He remembered who had been cold. He remembered who had buried fathers too early and mothers too tired. He remembered Leon Mercer at 14, standing in the rain outside a rent office while the landlord threw his family's mattress onto the sidewalk. He remembered Leon's father, a porter who died on a train platform after working 36 hours without real sleep. He remembered Odessa Mercer trying to keep dignity in a room with no heat. And he remembered exactly what he had done. He had paid that back rent. Not for loyalty, not for profit, because some things in Harlem were supposed to be handled before children learned what humiliation tasted like. Later, when Leon got older, Bumpy gave him small work. Deliveries, counting slips, watching doors. Nothing reckless, nothing glamorous. He never let Leon carry a gun. Said the boy's heart was too soft for iron and too nervous for blood. That had offended Leon then. Tonight, Bumpy understood he had been right. "Did he give them the route?" Bumpy asked. Isaiah nodded. "Yes." "Did anything get hit?" "No. We changed the pickup the moment the word reached me." Bumpy leaned back. "So no one got hurt?" "Not yet." Bumpy's face did not change, but the room got colder. "Not yet," he repeated. He picked up the coffee, took one slow sip, then set it back down. "Find out where Leon is." Isaiah waited. "And listen carefully," Bumpy said. "No one touches him." Isaiah blinked once. "You want him brought in?" "No." "You want him watched?" "Yes." "You want the Italians touched?" "Later." Isaiah lowered his voice. "Then what do you want done?" Bumpy folded the newspaper in half, precise and calm. "I want Harlem to remember that betrayal is a lonely thing." He stood, buttoned his coat, and looked out through the restaurant window at the street. Snow had begun to fall in little thin pieces, not enough to whiten the sidewalks, just enough to make the city look uncertain. "Leon thinks he sold information," Bumpy said quietly. "What he sold was belonging." Isaiah said nothing. Because men who worked around real power knew when a sentence had the shape of a verdict. At 1:10 in the morning, Bumpy made 3 phone calls. The first went to a landlord on 134th Street who owed him favor enough to lose sleep. The second went to a pharmacist whose brother Bumpy had once kept out of prison. The third went to a club owner who knew every bartender and card dealer north of Central Park. The instructions were simple. If Leon Mercer came asking for shelter, help, medicine, credit, food, a drink, a ride, a message delivered, a bed, a borrowed coat, or a friendly lie, the answer was no. No shouting, no threats, no drama. Just no. Then the message spread farther, because Harlem always understood the spaces between words. The shoeshine boy on 125th didn't know the whole story, but by 2 a.m. he knew not to carry notes for Leon. The woman who rented rooms over a beauty shop didn't know the details, but by 2:20 she knew Leon's name was not welcome on her stairs. 2 cab drivers, 3 bartenders, a church deacon, a butcher, a pawnbroker, and a dentist who stayed open late for cash patients all heard the same thing in different forms. Don't harm him. Don't hide him. Don't help him. That was all, which was enough. Meanwhile, Leon was doing what men did after making a choice they could not undo. He tried to convince himself it wasn't that bad. He went home to his apartment on St. Nicholas Place, locked the door, set the envelope on the table, and counted the money twice. Still 5,000. Still real. Still ugly. His mother was asleep in the next room, her cough finally quiet. The medicine bottle on the dresser had enough left for 2 days if stretched carefully. Leon looked at the cash and whispered, "I did it for her." But the room did not answer. And somewhere inside him, another voice whispered back, "No. You did it because fear made you cheap." He didn't sleep. He sat by the window until nearly 3, smoking cigarettes down to the filter, and watching winter drag its gray hand over Harlem. At 3:17, someone knocked once on the building door downstairs. Leon froze. No second knock came. No footsteps followed. But from that moment on, the night no longer felt like shelter. It felt like counting down. If this story is pulling you in, comment where you're watching from and subscribe now. It really helps the channel grow. At 6:40 a.m., Leon left his apartment to buy medicine before the pharmacy line got long. He made it halfway down the block before he felt it. Not danger, not pursuit, absence. Usually mornings in Harlem had texture. Somebody calling out from a window. Somebody cursing at the cold. A fruit seller dragging crates. A kid running late. Even silence in Harlem had company in it. This silence had distance. People saw him. They simply did not see him for long. Mrs. Bell, who lived 2 floors below and always said good morning, turned her face to the newspaper in her hand. The old veteran who sold loose cigarettes near the corner looked at Leon's shoes instead of his eyes. A boy Leon once tipped to wash his car stepped aside without a word. Leon told himself he was imagining it. That lasted until he reached the pharmacy. Mr. Kaplan stood behind the counter in shirt sleeves, sorting receipts. Leon put the prescription slip down with cash from the envelope. "I need the full order," he said. Kaplan read the slip, glanced up once, then folded it back in half. "I can't fill this." Leon frowned. "Why not?" "Supply issue." "You filled it last week." "Can't fill it today." Leon put more cash on the counter. "I have money." Kaplan pushed both the money and the prescription back. "Then spend it somewhere else." Leon stared at him. Kaplan never looked directly at him again. That was when the fear inside Leon finally found a chair and sat down. He left the pharmacy without the medicine. By 7:15, he was at the diner on 129th, where he ate breakfast 3 times a week. Ruth, the waitress with the soft voice and tired smile, saw him come in and froze with a coffee pot in her hand. "Morning, Ruth." She swallowed. "No breakfast today." Leon looked around the mostly empty room. "You got open tables." "The kitchen's closed." A plate clattered in the back. Someone laughed. Leon stared at her. "Ruth." She lowered her eyes. "Please don't make me say it." That hurt more than anger would have. He stepped closer. "Say what?" Her fingers tightened around the coffee pot. "You need to go." Leon's mouth opened, then closed. He turned without another word and walked back out into the cold. By now, the city no longer felt ordinary. It felt arranged. He went to a payphone and called a man named Curtis Hall, a small-time lender who had played cards with him for years. No answer. He called another friend, Walter Briggs. Walter's wife picked up, listened, then said, "Wrong number." Leon knew her voice. He called again. She left it ringing until the operator cut the line. At 8:10, he tried the club on 133rd, where he sometimes helped count receipts. The bartender answered. "Need to see Frankie," Leon said. The bartender replied, "Frankie died." Leon blinked. "Frankie was with me 2 nights ago." "Then that must have been his ghost." Click. Now Leon's hands were shaking. Not because he thought someone would kill him, because he understood, suddenly and completely, what was happening. Bumpy had not sent men. Bumpy had sent emptiness, and emptiness moved faster than bullets. Leon hurried back to his apartment building. The front door was locked. It was never locked in the daytime. He buzzed Mrs. Bell downstairs. No answer. He buzzed the super. Nothing. He buzzed his own apartment and heard his mother's weak voice over the crackling speaker. "Leon?" "It's me. Open the door." A pause. Then her voice, softer. "Mr. Tully says we have to be out by noon." Leon felt his stomach drop. "What?" "He says the rent arrangement is finished." "That arrangement was for the end of the month." "I know." "Open the door." Another pause. Then the click sounded, and Leon stepped inside, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Odessa Mercer was sitting on the bed in her coat, one small suitcase beside her, a blanket folded neatly on top. She looked smaller than she had last night. Not physically, spiritually. Like the room had already begun forgetting she lived there. "What happened?" Leon asked. She looked at his face, then at the money bulging under his coat. And mothers, real mothers, could hear the truth before it was spoken. "What did you do?" she asked quietly. Leon turned away. "Nothing." "Leon." He said nothing. Her voice broke just a little. "Son, what did you do?" He sank into the chair by the radiator and put his head in his hands. "I fixed it," he whispered. "I got the money." She didn't ask how. That was worse than if she had. A knock came at the apartment door. Not loud, not angry, just official. Leon stood. When he opened it, the landlord, Mr. Tully, was there with his hat in his hands and sorrow all over his face. "I need the room," he said. "You said noon." Tully nodded. "I changed my mind." Leon stepped closer. "Because of him?" Tully did not answer. He didn't need to. Leon laughed once, short and bitter. "Everybody's scared." Tully's eyes met his for 1 second. "No," he said. "Everybody remembers." Then he left. Leon stood in the doorway long after the footsteps faded. Behind him, his mother began to cough again. If you like this story, subscribe my channel for more beautiful stories. At 9:30 a.m., Leon did the only thing left for a frightened man who still hoped money meant something. He went looking for the people who had bought him. Italian money had made the problem. Maybe Italian protection could solve it. He found Vincent Marchetti at a tailor shop office on the edge of East Harlem, drinking espresso beside a window fogged with steam. 2 men stood behind him in dark coats. Neither smiled. Leon didn't sit. "You told me nothing would happen." Vincent looked up as if mildly inconvenienced. "I said nothing would happen to you from me. Harlem shut every door on me." "That sounds like a neighborhood problem." Leon stepped closer to the desk. "I gave you what you wanted." Vincent stirred his coffee. "You gave me a route that changed an hour later." Leon went still. Of course Bumpy had shifted the pickup. The information had become worthless before the buyers could use it. Leon had sold his soul for a lie that expired before dawn. "You used me," he said. Vincent shrugged. "You were available." "I need a place to stay. Just 1 night." "No." "You owe me." Vincent actually laughed at that. "Leon, listen carefully. Men like Bumpy despise traitors. Men like me distrust them. Tell me, where exactly do you imagine a betrayer fits comfortably?" Leon's voice cracked. "I can do more." The room went quiet. One of the men behind Vincent shifted his weight. Vincent leaned back in his chair and looked at Leon the way bankers looked at broken businesses. "That," he said softly, "is why you're finished." Leon stared at him. Vincent continued, "A loyal man betrays once because desperation makes him weak. A disloyal man offers twice because weakness is his nature. Either way, you are now useless to everyone." He took a slow sip of coffee. "Take my advice. Leave New York by sunset." Leon's hands curled at his sides. For one hot second, he imagined lunging across the desk, grabbing Vincent by the throat, making somebody pay for this humiliation. But there were two men with guns in the room, and no future in any version of that ending. So he backed away. Vincent called after him as he reached the door. "One more thing. If Bumpy lets you leave alive, be grateful. Not everyone believes in lessons." Outside, the wind had turned cruel. Leon walked with no destination and a stomach full of acid. Every block reminded him of a life that no longer recognized him. The church steps where he sat as a boy in summer, the barber shop where men argued baseball, the corner where he had kissed a girl named Lorraine after a dance in 1957, the pawn shop where Bumpy once got his mother's wedding ring back without taking a dime for himself. That memory hit him hardest, because until then, Leon had been able to tell himself Bumpy was just business. But Bumpy had not always treated him like business. That was the part betrayal never admitted up front. You never stabbed a symbol. You stabbed a memory, a favor, a hand that once lifted you. By 11 o'clock, Leon had nowhere to go except the one place he had been avoiding. Home. Except it wasn't home anymore. His mother was waiting on the stoop with the suitcase beside her and a wool hat pulled low over her ears. The landlord had not thrown them into the street. He had simply made the street the only place left. Odessa looked up as Leon approached. "You got the medicine?" He said nothing. She watched his face and understood. A black car rolled slowly past the block, then kept going. Leon's whole body tightened. His mother touched his sleeve. "Who did you cross?" He sat beside her on the stoop like a child. For a long moment, the only sound was traffic and Odessa's breathing. Then he said it. "I took money." Her eyes closed. "From who?" "It doesn't matter." "It matters if we're sitting outside with a suitcase." He swallowed. "I sold information." "To the police?" "No." "To the Italians?" He looked at her. That was answer enough. Odessa turned her face away. The disappointment in it was not loud. It was older than anger, older than fear. It sounded like a woman realizing she had not lost her son in one moment, but had been losing him inch by inch to desperation for months. "Bumpy helped us," she said. Leon stared at the sidewalk. "I know." "When your father died, who paid for the burial?" Leon said nothing. "When the landlord put our things in the hall, who fixed it?" He swallowed hard. "I know." "When you caught that case at 19 for running numbers and the police were ready to bury you, who made it disappear?" "Ma, please." "No," she said, and her voice sharpened in a way sickness had not been able to dull. "You say his name when you talk about what you did. You don't get to hide from it behind that blank face." Leon looked up slowly. Tears had gathered in Odessa's eyes, but none fell. "That man didn't feed us because he was soft," she whispered. "He fed us because Harlem survives by remembering who belongs to it. And you sold that for a stack of paper." Leon's chest tightened so hard it hurt. "I was trying to save you." Odessa nodded once, bitter and tired. No, baby. You were trying to save yourself from watching me fade. That's not the same thing. The sentence broke something in him, because it was true. And truth, when it comes late, always arrives carrying knives. If you're still here, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. At noon, Isaiah Cole found Bumpy in a quiet room above a social club on 7th Avenue. The room held a desk, 2 chairs, a coat rack, and a window with a view of rooftops and smoke. Bumpy sat with a legal pad in front of him, though he had written only one word on it. Leon. Isaiah closed the door. He tried the Italians. Bumpy nodded. They turned him away. Another nod. He's out on the stoop with his mother. Got nowhere. Bumpy looked out the window. How's she look? Isaiah frowned. Sick. Bumpy was silent for a long time. Men who liked easy stories would have said this was the moment Bumpy decided whether Leon lived or died. But those men would have been wrong. Bumpy had decided much earlier that Leon would live. Death ended fear too quickly. What Bumpy wanted was understanding. Not just for Leon, for everyone watching. A man could recover from a beating. A neighborhood could romanticize a murder. But exile? Exile turned into scripture. Bring me the envelope, Bumpy said. Isaiah blinked. What? The money. He still has it? As far as I know. Then bring it to me. Isaiah hesitated. You want it back? No, Bumpy said. I want him to know what it was worth. By 1 p.m., Leon had learned the final insult of isolation. Even pity had rules. A woman from the church brought Odessa a cup of broth, but did not step onto the stoop. A cousin sent word that they could not come by. A man from 3 buildings over offered Leon no room, no blanket, no car, no phone. Only one sentence. They said you can stay alive. Don't ask for more. By afternoon, the cold had deepened. Odessa's cough worsened. Leon wrapped his coat around her shoulders and sat beside her with the money pressing against his ribs like guilt made physical. At 2:15, Isaiah approached alone. Not fast, not threatening, just steady. Leon stood at once, protective and afraid. Isaiah stopped 3 feet away. Bumpy says your mother shouldn't freeze because you're a fool. He handed Leon a folded paper. Inside was an address on the Lower East Side and the key to a room above a funeral parlor that Bumpy controlled. Temporary. Clean enough. Warm enough. Leon looked up, confused. Isaiah held out his other hand. The envelope. Leon stared at him. That's all? Isaiah's expression did not move. That's all. Slowly, Leon reached inside his coat and took out the money. His fingers resisted giving it up. Not because he still wanted it, because letting go of it would mean admitting the whole thing had bought absolutely nothing. Isaiah took the bundle, weighed it once in his palm, then said, Come tonight, 8 o'clock, alone. Where? Wells. Leon's throat tightened. He wants to see me? Isaiah nodded. Why? For the same reason a man watches a fire after someone tells him the house is empty. He wants to know what survived. Then Isaiah walked away. That evening, after Odessa was settled into the room downtown with medicine already waiting on the dresser, Leon stood outside the Wells restaurant for nearly 5 minutes before going in. The place was busy, but too quiet. Conversations stayed low. Silverware moved. Men looked up and then down again. Nobody stopped him. Nobody greeted him. At the back booth, Bumpy Johnson sat alone. He did not wave Leon over. He simply waited. Leon crossed the room as if the floor beneath him belonged to someone else. When he reached the booth, Bumpy pointed to the seat opposite him. "Sit down." Leon sat. On the table between them was the envelope, untied now, empty. Bumpy folded his hands. For a long time, he just looked at Leon. Not with rage, not with contempt. Something worse. With disappointment calm enough to be permanent. "You know," Bumpy said at last, "I always thought fear would be the thing that ruined you." Leon swallowed. "Not because you were weak," Bumpy continued, "but because you were kind in the wrong places. Men like you get torn between love and pride. That makes them easy to buy if life hits hard enough." Leon looked at the table. "I didn't mean for anybody to get hurt." Bumpy almost smiled. "That's the prayer every trader says after the sale. I changed my mind after. But not before you took the money." Leon had no answer. Bumpy tapped the empty envelope. "Do you know what $5,000 bought today?" Leon said nothing. "It bought you a room for your mother. It bought her medicine. It bought you a meeting with me instead of a priest." Leon looked up sharply. Bumpy's eyes stayed steady. "I could have had you disappear," Bumpy said. "Easy. Men have vanished in this city for less. But then what would Harlem learn? That I get angry? Everybody already knows that." He leaned back. "What they needed to learn is this. If you sell your name, the money won't keep you warm. If you betray your own, the people you sell to won't love you, and the people you sold won't trust you. You end up standing in the middle with cash in your hand and nowhere left to go." Leon's voice came out ragged. "What happens now?" Bumpy looked at him for a long time. "By morning," he said, "you're gone." Leon went still. "Gone where?" "Anywhere that isn't here." "You're banishing me." "I'm protecting Harlem from your weakness." Leon flinched. Bumpy continued. "There's a bus leaving at 6:10 for Richmond. You'll be on it. Your mother will go with you. There'll be enough money waiting to get her cared for through the winter." Leon stared at him. "Why?" That finally brought a flicker of emotion to Bumpy's face. "Because your mother didn't betray me." The restaurant was so quiet, Leon could hear someone stirring coffee 3 tables away. "I can't start over down there," Leon whispered. Bumpy's answer came flat and cold. "That sounds like a consequence." Leon lowered his head. Bumpy reached into his coat and placed a train of papers on the table. Bus tickets, a small cash packet, a note with a doctor's name in Virginia. Then he said the sentence Leon would carry for the rest of his life. "I'm not punishing you for taking money, Leon. I'm punishing you for forgetting that in Harlem, a man is worth more than what he can be bought for." Before the final part, comment where you're watching from and subscribe if you want more emotional stories told like this. Leon left the Wells just after 9. Nobody followed him. Nobody had to. The city itself had already walked him to the edge. He spent the night in the narrow room above the funeral parlor, sitting by the radiator while Odessa slept in the next bed under 2 blankets. Once, just after midnight, she woke and saw him staring at nothing. "Did you see him?" she asked. "Yes." "What did he say?" Leon looked at his hands.
He said by morning, I'm gone. Odessa was quiet for a while. Then she said, That means he let you keep tomorrow. Leon laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You call this mercy? She turned her head on the pillow. Mercy doesn't always feel kind. He didn't answer. At 2 a.m., he rose and stood by the window. Snow dusted the fire escape's silver. Somewhere below, a drunk sang half a hymn and forgot the words. A police siren passed in the distance and faded. This was his city, not by deed or title, by memory. First fight on these streets, first dollar earned, first lie told, first good suit, first girl loved, first funeral attended as a man instead of a child. And now the city was pushing him out not with noise, but with agreement. That was the unbearable part. If Bumpy had sent men, Leon could have hated him. If Bumpy had beaten him, Leon could have called himself a victim. But Bumpy had done something cleaner. He had made Harlem vote. And Harlem had voted no. At 4:30, Leon packed what little they had. A shirt, 2 pairs of socks, Odessa's medicine,
A framed photograph of his father in work clothes, smiling at somebody off camera. Leon wrapped the picture in a towel and placed it gently in the suitcase. At 5:20, a black sedan pulled to the curb below. No driver got out. No horn sounded. Leon understood. He helped Odessa down the stairs and into the back seat. Neither of them spoke during the ride to the station. The city before sunrise looked stripped bare. Storefronts shuttered, street lamps fading, sidewalk steam rising from grates like the whole island was breathing in its sleep. At the terminal, Isaiah was waiting with 2 tickets and a paper sack of food. He handed them over. Odessa thanked him. Isaiah nodded respectfully. Ma'am? Leon took the bag, then the tickets. Does he hate me? He asked quietly. Isaiah looked at him without pity. No, he said. If he hated you, this would have ended different. Leon looked down. Then what is this? Isaiah adjusted his gloves. This is Bumpy making sure everyone remembers the difference between hunger and betrayal. They stood in silence while the first boarding call echoed through the terminal. Then Isaiah added one more thing. He told me to tell you this exactly. Leon looked up. He said, Some men lose Harlem because Harlem was never theirs. You lost Harlem because it was, and you forgot what that meant. Leon closed his eyes. That did it. Not the exile, not the fear, not the wasted money. That sentence. Because it told him Bumpy had seen the best part of him once, and had now buried it. When the bus doors opened, Odessa touched her son's arm. Come on. Leon nodded and followed her aboard. He chose the window seat and watched the station blur with movement. Porters, coffee vendors, women adjusting hats, men carrying their lives in cheap suitcases. Then, across the platform, he saw him. Bumpy Johnson. Not close, not dramatic, not like a scene built for applause. Just standing in a dark overcoat near a newspaper stand, hands in his pockets, watching. Leon's breath caught. Bumpy did not wave, did not smile, did not come nearer. He only stood there long enough to make sure Leon understood the final lesson. A man can be spared. He can even be helped. But once trust is buried, It does not rise with the morning. The bus engine turned over. The terminal trembled. Leon looked one last time toward the platform. Bumpy had already turned away. By the time the bus rolled out into the pale New York dawn, Leon Mercer was still alive, still breathing, still ashamed, still carrying the sound of a city closing behind him. But in Harlem, he was gone. And that was the point. Because after that winter morning in 1962, nobody in Bumpy's circle ever again mistook desperation for permission. Nobody forgot that the worst punishment wasn't always a bullet or a beating. Sometimes it was being left alive long enough to understand exactly what your choice had cost. The Italians learned something too. Information could be bought, but loyalty could not. And when they tried to purchase one using the other, all they got was a frightened man, a useless route, and a lesson Bumpy Johnson delivered without raising his voice. Months later, people still told the story in pieces. Not loudly. Harlem never wasted its best stories on shouting. They told it in barber chairs and card rooms and back booths over coffee. A man took money. A mother needed medicine. A promise got sold. And by morning, he was gone. Some said Bumpy was merciful. Some said he was colder than mercy. Most understood he was something more dangerous than either. He was disciplined. And disciplined men changed neighborhoods. Years later, when younger runners asked old-timers why no one around Bumpy ever played both sides, the answer was simple. Because Harlem had seen what happened to Leon Mercer. Not blood in the street, not sirens in the night. Just a man erased from the only place that had ever called him its own. That was enough. It would always be enough. And maybe that is the hardest truth in stories like this one. People don't fall because evil suddenly grabs them. Most of the time, they fall because pain convinces them that one wrong choice is really a loving sacrifice. That was Leon's tragedy. He loved his mother. He feared losing her. He wanted one fast miracle. And in reaching for it, he traded away the very thing that might have helped him survive with his soul intact. Bumpy saw that. He punished the betrayal. But he also preserved the lesson. That's why the story lasted. Because it wasn't just about power. It was about value. What a neighborhood is worth. What trust is worth. What a man is worth when no one is offering cash for his conscience. By the time the sun rose fully over Harlem that day, the streets looked ordinary again. Vendors opened up. Radios played through cracked windows. Men argued scores and politics. Women carried groceries. Children ran late for school. The city moved on the way cities do. But underneath that ordinary morning was an understanding so clear nobody needed to say it twice. You could work beside Bumpy. You could fear him. You could respect him. You could even disagree with him. But if you sold him, you had already sold the right to stay. If you like this story, subscribe my channel for more beautiful stories.